Okay, let's go ahead and get started this evening. My name is Michael Jolifs, and I am a certified financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst. And the session this evening is sponsored by the Center for Divorce Education, which is comprised of a group of individuals that, while we're in a number of different disciplines, from taxes to real estate to mortgages, things like that, focus on people that are involved in divorce, because it creates a lot of financial issues, untangling the marriage and things like that. And you run into a lot of things that a lot of people aren't real sure how to deal with. And so in order to keep people from making some pretty expensive mistakes, it's important that you work with somebody that knows and understands the whole process. Our goal this evening is to help you understand the process, some of the pitfalls, the things to be careful of, to watch out for, and how to avoid some of those bumps in the road to getting divorced if you decide that's what you want to do. So if I could make sure you turn off your cell phones so that we don't get interrupted by that this evening, that would be good. We're going to cover a lot of material this evening, and in doing that, I'll be finished speaking a little bit after 8 o'clock, and then we'll have some time for some questions after that. Has everybody got the blue handout material there? Okay, in there, there's a lot of material, some of which we're going to talk about tonight, some we're not. It's just there for your future reference. There's a list of websites in there dealing with divorce. And the last one on that list is actually the Maricopa County Superior Court website, where you can actually download the forms and instructions and things to actually file your divorce yourself, should you choose to do that. There's also a couple of articles in there relating to the importance of planning and divorce. There's also some questions that you might want to ask a family law should you decide to retain one. And that's an important thing, because a lot of times an attorney might be a generalist, where they do bankruptcy in the morning and defend DUIs at lunch and then handle your divorce in the afternoon. That's not the kind of person you want. Divorce is a very specialized area of the law. You want somebody that's all they do, and that's very important. There is a certification for family law specialist, which means that they've passed certain additional qualifications. That's something that's a positive if they have that as well. But its focus is on divorce. There's also a list of things you might want to consider doing before you file for divorce. Things like opening up accounts in your own name, getting credit cards in your own name, things like that, because that could be more difficult once you are divorced. And then we'll talk about some things later on about credit and how to deal with those different issues. A little bit of information about myself. Then there's also a list of important documents, and you might want to start gathering those together. One, because it may take a while to find them all, and two is that if your spouse isn't aware that you're thinking about divorce, as soon as you mention it, those may disappear. And so it's good to have a copy of those and have them somewhere else, because that has been known to happen. And it's a lot more difficult to try to reconstruct that after the fact, and tremendously more expensive to do that. So if that's a concern, make sure you do get those. Certified financial planner, I often run into couples that got divorced. It happens to more than 1 out of 2 here in Arizona. And so it is a fact of life. And seeing the not only emotional but financial devastation that can occur had certainly an impact on me throughout my career. I also saw people that had already been divorced, and maybe they were coming to me saying, hey, I got this settlement, I don't know what to do with it. I've done it before, my spouse always did it. Or I saw them 4 or 5 years down the road after they'd gotten divorced and the settlement was gone and they were desperate, what do I do now? And at that point, it's a little bit late, because you don't have a lot of resources to deal with. The other thing that got me interested in this specific area is that I got divorced myself here in Arizona. And what I discovered was that anybody that thinks that right, wrong, or fair happens in the courtroom is sadly delusional, because it doesn't. So the one thing that you want to, if you don't take away anything else this evening, is that the last thing you want to do is go to trial, because you don't want to have a judge who doesn't know you, doesn't know your situation, make a decision that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. And so you're far better off to settle with your spouse if at all possible, to do that. Sometimes it's not possible, but if it is, you're far better off to do that. As a financial planner, I was used to dealing with clients in investments and planning for retirement, managing debt, estate planning issues, insurance, things like that. And all of those are certainly an issue in divorce. And while I'm not an attorney and can't give legal advice, I know the law, I know the courts, I know how they work, but I take a little different perspective than the attorney does. Because as bad as divorce is, you're not going through a single divorce, you're actually going through 3 divorces. You have the legal divorce, which is the paperwork, the procedures, the filings, things like that, and the attorney certainly can handle those if you choose to use one. You also have the emotional divorce, which is I hate you, you scum, I never want to see you again. And then you have the financial divorce, which is untangling the financial issues of the marriage. And too often we see those overlap and get entangled. And so you hear the funny stories about the couple that are fighting over the dog or the Christmas ornaments. That's true, it happens. And they'll spend $2,000 in attorney time fighting over $20 in Christmas decorations. But they let the emotions kind of get in the way, and it causes them to make bad decisions. And sometimes down the road, a year or two, they'll say, why did I do that? What was I thinking? And so part of my goal is to help you understand the process and some of the things to watch out for and the questions to ask so that that's not you a couple of years down the road. Another goal that we have is to educate you so that you don't get destroyed financially in the process. Because one of the things that happens is the courts tend to take a look at net worth. What are your assets? How do we divvy up the assets? But the reality is that we live by cash flow. What are my bills and what money do I have coming in to pay those? Doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with what the assets are. And so that's certainly something that you need to understand. We'll see that a little more closely here in one of the case studies that we take a look at. Now here in Arizona, there are 3 ways that you can get divorced. You can do it yourself. 7 out of 10 people do. They complete the paperwork, they file it with the court, they represent themselves if they go to trial, and they handle it that way. Now for people that aren't as comfortable with that, you may want to utilize a document preparer who will fill out the forms, they'll file them, they'll help guide you through the process, although they won't give you legal advice, but they can handle the paperwork part of it for you. And there are a number of them in town. There are some that advertise a lot. Those are probably not the ones you want to use. If anybody is interested in that, I can certainly give you a referral to somebody that is competent to do that. The other way is you can utilize an attorney. And the attorney might be utilized simply to drop the paperwork for an agreement that you've already reached. They might be able to help you reach an agreement, or worst case, if you end up going to trial, to help you litigate it and represent you at trial to do that. People use all 3 of those. Only about 5% of divorces ever actually go to trial. 95% get settled before that, and that's certainly preferable to doing that. In your packet is a little diagram. Okay, it kind of helps explain the divorce process. And it really starts with the decision to divorce. And that might seem like kind of a foregone conclusion, or why else would I be here? But I would say probably 25% of the people I talk to don't end up getting divorced. Maybe their spouse has made some noises, or there's some unsettled things in the marriage that have got them concerned or worried. And they just want to know what their rights are, how they should protect themselves, things like that. So often I see people a year or 2 before a divorce might even happen. They're just trying to gather some information. Once you've made the decision to divorce, again, there are some things you might want to do before you file. Finding out for sure what all your debts are, what your assets are, getting paperwork, opening accounts in your own name, things like that.